is giving comparative exams like CAT and GMAT mandatory to get into Masters Union. I'm not from tech background. How will I cope up?
It doesn't matter because we assume that people who are also coming from tech background, they have to unlearn and relearn everything. So someone having done computer science in their undergraduate studies does not mean anything. No offense to the computer science folks.
This is great, but the fees, of course, we're at a steep price as per students. They want to understand more about scholarships, the banking partners, if there are any. Also, is it worth it? Because, the cost is really high.
Mahak, I don't say this out loud. I don't know if I've said it publicly ever. Hi, Mahak, how's it going?
Going good, Pratham. Just a very exciting time in the cycle when we're getting a lot of new admissions, applications, and going through it is as much fun for me as it is for you, I'm sure.
I think right now we're at the peak.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're in the middle of round 2.
Correct.
And, so today's session is actually quite interesting. We get so many questions about admissions. What is the criteria? What is this? What is that? What is MU-BAAT? How much is which criteria weighted to? So I thought, this would be a good way to answer all the questions.
Right.
So you already know the format, but for the audience, we have a WhatsApp AMA session where students will send us questions on WhatsApp live, and we'll try to answer each of those questions one-on-one. I can answer as many as I can, and then of course you can answer as many as you can.
Sure.
And we can keep jumping off of. I think let's keep it casual that way.
Yeah.
So everyone there listening to us, I hope you guys are ready as well. If you have very specific questions, you can just go down, scroll below, and you'll actually find all the questions that we will be answering individually as well. So you don't have to watch the full video if you have a very specific question. There's a good chance that we would have covered your question over the next 45 minutes.
Yes.
All right. So let's get started.
Absolutely.
All right. I think the first question that, by the way, has already come in is, what is Masters Union really looking for in a candidate? Which is a fair question.
It is.
I think you can start and then I can take it from there.
Sure. So there are 2 parts of this. Okay. There are 2 different things. One is, what is the admissions criteria? Which is more of the, it's like a structured thought process there. The 3 criteria that we're looking at, the first one is 33% weightage, which is the work X. The second part is, your academia, how well have you performed in life in academics, co-curricular and leadership, like it's a single bucket. And the third one is how fluent are you, how well you structure your thoughts, how well you communicate. So this is more the optics of it that, these are the 3 criteria. And an immediate question that students, especially the freshers, they ask is, but what about me? Because I, of course, don't have work experience. In that case, again, what the student has done during their college life, have you led any society? Have you organized fests in your societies? We will still consider those in that work X 33% bucket because we are considering freshers, even though it's a very, very tiny pool of our overall cohort.
Correct.
Now, if I look at what do we look for and what do I look for specifically, for me, it's about, do you have what it takes for you to be here at Masters Union to contribute to the cohort, to actually make a meaningful impact to your classroom? Because ultimately, the professors, the experience is one part of the entire MBA program. But the other part is equally about what do you bring in as an individual to the cohort. And there we again have, specific criteria that we're looking for. So the first one is that, have you really made the best use of the time and opportunities that were there in front of you? Because it's okay if you didn't do really well in academics. Some people ask that, I've not done great in academics. Should I still apply? For me, I'm like, sure, but tell me what or where have you done well? If not academics, if that was not your focus, then what was? So that is one of them. Then
fair. So just to extend that thought a little bit. So let's say even if you're from IIT, JEE rank 1, but if at IIT you didn't do anything, didn't make use of the amazing opportunities you get there, then perhaps not the best candidate.
Correct. Right? Correct. Because then will and skill, right? Will is needed for sure. Skill is something we can upskill you here also.
Got it. Yeah. The attitude, right?
The attitude.
And so in that sense, I've seen some of the applications or applicants who come from colleges we've never even heard of.
I agree.
Right?
Yes.
And they end up doing the best.
Yes.
Right? And I think we have some examples in this cohort. In fact, the winner of last VIP, the MVP, the pre-seed challenge, I think is somebody,
right,
without mentioning his name, somebody whose college name I did not know.
Correct.
Right? And he's doing so well.
I think in that's why, Pratham, people who not got into good colleges, they feel that FOMO and need for proving themselves even more.
Yeah.
And sometimes those who've actually made it to good colleges, they're in that mindset, okay, now I've gotten this checklist off my list. I've gotten this crown of IIT or SRCC.
I have the brand already.
Exactly. But that's not how life works, right? Then the other thing is that how open is that person to, like, what's the growth mindset? How open is he or she to feedback? Because ultimately, this is going to be a place you're going to learn so much. Are you a sponge or are you a rock which is not ready to absorb it all? So that becomes again equally critical. How open are you to?
How do you check that? Like,
I feel that's easy to do in interviews for sure. Because, when even when the interviewer is giving feedback, is the person close to that feedback? Is he getting defensive? Because you can immediately sense it when someone gets defensive to feedback, right? So in interview, it's much easier to check that. In the application also, I feel some people like, oh, I'm perfect. And I'm like, I am also not perfect today. So you get some sense on it. So that's what at least I
think it's the smaller things, right? I mean, it's how humbly you talk about your achievements.
Correct.
Right? If you think that, I recorded the highest figures in my sales team. Sure. But I mean, like, there's a better, more humble way to present it that, I learned this and I grew like this. And also I think what matters is, if you see the trajectory of the person, like let's say they didn't go to the best college or they didn't have the best grades, but how did they fare in life after that? Is there an upward trajectory or is there a linear trajectory?
Right. Absolutely.
I think that also showcases.
That showcases as well. Absolutely. And then, basically you're humble, you're open to being coached, or you're someone who's curious about new things, because here you'll be forced to do things that you've never done before. Are you just like really going out and being curious? Are you open to experimenting? That's another one. And the last two that I have is, are you motivated to create an impact? Are you motivated to do something meaningful, for yourself, for your family, for the society, and in every way possible? And the last one is that, do you exhibit strong leadership potential? And I would love to actually hear that from you, that, what does leadership potential even mean to you?
Yeah, I think, see, at the end of the day, this is an MBA program or an MBA equivalent program, and there is administration in the middle of it. And I think for me, administration and leadership, sort of two sides of the same coin. And, if you, let's say, are starting a company in the future, or if you want to become the CEO of a company, we always feel, and I've often heard this, that, people are born leaders. I think that's completely untrue. And leadership is a skill, much like accounting, that can very easily, or not easily, but very definitively be taught.
For me, I think leadership is about how do you get the best from others around you through your leadership. Because everybody is driven by different things, which means that there's complex human relationships. And then, how do you motivate someone could be very different from how you motivate the other person. And how do you drive that out through because at Stanford, I loved one class when they said that the question they would ask us is, why should anyone follow you? They're not making you say that, you're a leader and go figure it out. It's about what's in it in you that people are actually going to follow you. So,
no, I think, let me just extend that answer a little bit then. You mentioned those 5 things. I'll add one 6th thing, which is entrepreneurship. A lot of students ask us this question that I don't want to become an entrepreneur. So why should I come to Masters Union, which is so entrepreneurship focused? Right. And to them, I'd like to say that there is no job today, right, that does not require you to be entrepreneurial.
Right.
Entrepreneurship doesn't mean just to start your own company.
Right.
It also means being entrepreneurial within a role or within a company, within a job. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, at least in your team or in my team, people who have excelled, people who have grown, and people who have shown leadership abilities are people who are entrepreneurial, right? Who have taken risks, even if it's in their own department. People who have tried something new, even if it's within their own department. And people who have, really showcase this sense of energy that they bring. When they come to the room sort of lights up. And that to me is also equally important in a candidate, right? Even if they're not looking to start a company, that's okay. But do you have that DNA of entrepreneurship? I think that is so critical. And by the way, those who don't have it, they definitely end up creating that for themselves when they come to Masters Union.
Correct. I agree with that. And it's about building that to excel, irrespective of whether you choose to be an entrepreneur or you choose to go somewhere else. You still need that mindset of an entrepreneur, the owner mindset, wherever you go.
Yeah, the ownership is so important. Yeah.
That was the top 3 criteria in Adam Grant's survey that he did, remember?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, of course.
Growth mindset, the ownership, hustle.
What managers look for in their reportees, absolutely. Yeah.
So the next question that we have, Pratham, is giving competitive exams like CAT and GMAT mandatory to get into Masters Union?
So I think, we have changed our policy on this. And I think there is some confusion. So until last year, CAT, if you had taken the CAT or GMAT or GRE, you did not have to take the MU-BAAT.
Okay.
And what we realized is that sometimes the CAT scores and the GMAT scores are not doing justice to someone's true potential. I think what we look for in a candidate is very different from what a GMAT score showcases about a candidate. So I think this year what we have decided is that MU-BAAT, which is our own entrance exam, is essentially compulsory for all students looking to join Masters Union. Right? But one interesting thing I want to talk about MU-BAAT, or the Masters Union Business Aptitude Test, is that students do not need to take time off their job, enroll in an academy or in some exam test prep center and study for MU-BAAT. MU-BAAT is an exam which you can only crack with all your life experiences and not some test prep book or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about preparing for this exam. This exam is testing your entire life and not the last 2 months of preparation that you can hack in. In fact, sometimes we don't even give you the exact format of the exam. We keep changing it a little bit so that it's sort of like a curveball that's thrown to the students. So I love the exam. I've taken the exam. Both of us took the exam.
Yes.
And I think that exam truly shows us whether the student is going to be a right fit for Masters Union. So to summarize, if you have a CAD, GMAT or a GRE score, please do submit it. We will look at it, but we will look at your MU-BAAT score with way more weightage. But you can talk a little bit about what the exam actually looks like,
Sure,
as
I
much
would
as we
love
can
to.
tell.
Yeah. So there are three big sessions within the exam. The first one is quants. Again, the clear instruction to the people who are even setting the exam is that don't test for someone's ability to memorize a formula. And if there is a formula that is there in the question, we actually just write it there that this is the formula, because that should not lead to you not solving the problem statement. But there are questions around probability, statistics, data sufficiency, etc. Again, judging your ability to, make sense of what's in front of you.
And as far as I remember, they're all applied questions.
Yes.
They're not like let X be equal to Y and then what is A equal to, right?
Correct.
It's usually given in a business environment or in a business context.
Absolutely. Then the second session is my favorite, which is where we play games.
Yes.
And there'll be games that are testing your risk-taking appetite.
Yes, by the way, there are games in the exam.
Yeah.
You didn't hear that wrong. There are actual games that we play, which I think we believe is a great test of someone's judgment, decision making.
So it's in the audio-visual format. Now imagine a student, like we keep talking about how everybody learns in a different format and we give exam in the same format. Now I want to make sure that even if someone who learns well or better audio-visually, he or she also has the ability to do well in the exam. So that's why that gaming session, which tests for different skills. And then the last part.
There are 3 games, right?
There are 3 games. Yes. You can practice those games. So there'll be like mock games that are happening. So it's not like you've just randomly entered the game and you start. Just like any game that you play, it trains you. You get all the like what functions where. So you're able to play it very easily after that. And then the last part, which is to me very, very exciting. It has 2 subparts. The first one is we'll actually give you short case problems, in some way, where I'm saying, Pratham, imagine you're the marketing head at Amazon. What is going to be your strategy, XYZ?
Correct.
So it'll give you a place where you'll do a role play in some way. But the fact is that you're giving it on the spot, which means that it does not differentiate between someone who has a lot of experience versus does not. It actually just levels the playing field. You're not giving excessive prep time to someone. Correct. So you're really testing for their ability to think quickly on their feet.
Correct.
And the last one's going to be your video essay and your written essays, which again are testing for your communication ability. Are you able to structure your thoughts really well? Are you able to communicate really what matters to you?
Correct. And can you share the questions that we've asked in the past?
So there are actually 7 to 8 sample papers which we've made live. And the link to that is also going to be attached in the video. Awesome. So that's something that students can refer to very easily.
So feel free to look at the sample papers.
Yes.
But the final exam would be somewhat different. The structure will be very similar.
Correct.
But the questions might be different. And, this is one of the only exams I think out there where you don't have multiple choice questions only. Right? I think only one section has multiple choice.
Just the first section.
Just the first section has multiple choice. The rest is all, you're typing or you're video recording yourself.
Or you're playing the game.
Or you're playing the game, right? And so we really believe that this exam truly showcases us who you are as a person and not as a test taker or a test prepper, if you will,
And I have spoken to so many students, Pratham, who have said that the exam itself, they had so much fun. Like this most fun exam that they've taken. It was not stressful like a typical exam. It's something where they actually felt they can have an opinion of their own. Correct. Which is what I loved about it.
Correct. And you can take it at home.
You can take it at home. You can. You need a stable internet. Your video has to be on. It's a proctored exam, so there have been cases where I've rejected people who we could see clearly that they've maybe put another screen or have been just moving around on.
The AI is very intelligent,
folks. It is, honestly.
So don't try to cheat at all. Don't try to have ChatGPT open on the side. And even if you do, we'll easily get to know. That's number one. Number two, that's not what we are testing,
Correct.
right? When you're speaking into the camera, no amount of chat GPT can help you. It's your confidence that will speak. And, also, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, sometimes you can see the eyes reading something.
Exactly.
And so if you ever read, we will get to know. So just take it fully honestly.
Exactly.
Any other way is not gonna.
It's not
worth your while.
Right.
And even if you're not interested in Masters Union,
take the
still
exam.
take the exam.
Yeah.
Still take the exam.
It's a really fun exam. And in fact, we'll be doing another mock of the Masters Union BAAT in the first to second week of March.
Got it.
So again, there's some people who still feel that I want to take a mock test. You don't have to. Again, I really, really honestly feel that it's something you can really ace by being yourself. And we've made it as logical more than theoretical as possible. But if some of you feel that you want to take it still, there'll be a mock test that'll happen in March, and you can look out for that as well.
Absolutely. All right.
So Pratham, one question here, which I often hear. Now, someone's got, say, 85 percentile in their CAT. Should he or she mention that percentile in their application? Will that help? Will that not help?
See, generally speaking, the average CAT score that we accept, even though that's not a criteria, would be somewhere in the vicinity of 95, 96, 97, right? However, we have also accepted students with a 60 percentile. And we're very proud of that because there were other aspects about that student's life that were so impressive.
Stanford had a 530 Indian guy, imagine. So
there you go. So 530 in GMAT.
Yeah.
There you go. And if Stanford can accept a 530 GMAT, we definitely can as well, right? Because we're looking at something more than just the exam.
The holistic thing.
If you have a score which you want to share with us, please share. If it's less or more, it's not going to change the decision for us in any way. Right. It's not going to change the decision for us. It just gives us one more data point. It may impact 0.5% or 1%, but that will not be the difference between you getting accepted and rejected.
Right.
But we have accepted students with 60 percentile, and we have rejected students with 100 percentile also.
Yes.
Right? Because we understood that, hey, the culture is just not going to fit in, right? In fact, just yesterday we were looking at round 2 applications. I've got someone with a 99.86. I still clearly remember. That means the student was probably in the top 1,000 or top 1,500 test takers.
Correct.
And I realized just by the way he was talking into the camera that he did not have the openness of feedback. He didn't have the openness. He just was too full of himself, right? And I realized that, hey, is it even worthwhile to interview the student? I was in two minds, and finally we rejected that student, right? So, but I think the lowest CAT that we have accepted so far is 60 percentile. We haven't gone lower than that, but let's see. Never say never.
Right. No, I agree. I think it's that holistic application that we're looking at every single time. So, irrespective of whether you've given CAT or GMAT, if you've not given it, please don't specially give it for Masters Union. That's not all required. If you have given it, it's your choice if you want to tell us about it or not. Just to give you a number, I don't know if you have the exact numbers, maybe you have. I think only 30% of Masters Union candidates have taken the CAT. So 70% students who apply to Masters Union are not coming from the CAT audience. They're not people who are going for the traditional MBA route. These are people with work experience who may have taken the GMAT or actually may not even have taken the GMAT and are looking for a postgraduate experience. I think GMAT also would be maybe 30%. Yeah. So I think 30% CAT, 30% GMAT, and then almost 40% just MU-BAAT. Right. And the acceptance rates across all three would be uniform. Correct. I don't think one would be more represented or underrepresented, which showcases that for us, it's all the same. Fantastic. Oh, this one's interesting question, Pratham. So I think because we're also a 16-month MBA program, ISB is also a year-long MBA program, and the comparison is inevitable in some way. So what do you as a founder think we've done differently, better, worse than ISB? I think there are a few things, right? First of all is our entire focus on bringing practitioners into the classroom, right? Our goal is that each course or most of the courses should be co-taught by a full-time faculty who brings in the theory, who brings in the rigor, and a visiting practitioner who's probably a MD or a CEO or a VP in a company. And they come together and then they teach the course in a very applied manner, right? So this is very little, not very little, but there's only maybe 30% theory and 70% application. Whereas in other business schools, and I will not single out ISB, but in other business schools, I've seen that perhaps the focus on theory is 70% and the application is 30%. So I think for us, it's the reverse. So that's number one. Number two is our entire focus on helping you learn business by actually building a business. I think that's the cornerstone. So in Masters Union, in each term, essentially,
you're building a business, right? In term 1, you're building an e-commerce store. In term 2, you're building a YouTube business. And term 3 onwards, you're building the venture initiation program, right? So you're building a business in stages. And I think that entire concept of learning business by doing business is very unique to Masters Union. And it's not there in ISP. It's not there, I think, in IIMs. And in fact, even globally, I haven't seen as much of a focus on this, right? Stanford, of course, is one school that's known for entrepreneurship in a big, big way. And I think we have tried to take the best aspects of Stanford, Wharton, and ISB as well, and try to bring it all together into the entrepreneurial focus that we have, right? I think that's number 2.
Just one small data point to add here, Pratham, because sometimes, the 40% of all of our credit requirement actually goes to outclass, which itself then talks about how big of a focus area that is for us.
So just maybe we can talk for 2 minutes about in-class versus out-class.
Sure.
Right. So ISB or IIMs, most of their credits come from the courses that you take sitting inside a classroom like this. Right. But at Masters Union, you only get 60% of your credits from courses and 40% of your credits come from outclass, where you're actually building these businesses, right? So your grades for that 40% criteria will come from your profit or your revenue or the customer feedback that your product is getting.
The website quality, the go-to-market strategy.
The real stuff that's happening out there, right? So I think that's incredibly differentiated about Masters Union. And I think finally, I would say that the way the placements work, right? I think, at least in India, there is this day 0, day 1, day 2. Right. And all placements have to finish within those 3 days. And students are, under that pressure ki mera ek interview abhi, ek interview kal hai. And I think we have taken a departure from that system. Right. And we run placements for almost 5 to 6 months. Right. And companies come throughout those 5 months. Students get enough time to make their decisions. Students get enough time to prepare for the companies. So I think the placement policies are very different. We have done another podcast on placements, and which you can find here, the link to. And that will go into a lot more detail about what Masters Union placements process actually looks like. So I think that's very differentiated from the ISP system. I think we also have a big focus on venture capital. We have a big focus on founder's office as a role. We have a big focus on, I think, startups as a possible destination for our students. I think that's a little bit differentiated from ISP as well as IIMs. But I think now let me ask you a question on similar lines, which is, how do you think Masters Union is similar or different from global business schools, right? You went to Stanford. What are the similarities and differences that you see?
So I think it has a lot of the goodnesses of the global business schools, where I think the biggest difference when I was in NSIT versus when I went to Stanford is that the classroom never felt like a classroom, honestly. It did not feel like the professors there as it was never a monologue. It was a very dialogue kind of situation where we're discussing and debating. The professor is not saying that this is the right answer. He's wanting for us to struggle to get to the right answer so that we're constantly forming an opinion of why this is working, why this is not working, why this is right versus not. And to me, that was beautiful because then it suddenly removes that fear of being wrong. It removes the fear of not knowing. You can contribute, you can ask smart questions, and the class is going to progress, which is what I think we've done really well here as well. Like you look at Bhupesh's class, he'll keep asking you why this question even, right? He'll say that, why did you ask this here? So it's helping you build a strong muscle constantly of how do you ask the right questions to get to the answer, right? It's not about the final answer. It's about how do you reach there. So I think that we've done really well. And even the startup ecosystem, because in Stanford, even my grades, I think 15% max would be focused on startup or VC related classes. But everything else was probably more lectures and classrooms, etc. And within the classrooms, I think they've done a good job of bringing in practitioners where it was more hands-on. One thing we are very different from, and I think we've done it incredibly better because, again, I don't think, Pratham, and you would say that about Wharton also probably, I don't think the career departments exist the way it exists here.
Absolutely.
There is no day 0, there's no day 1. There are some career fairs, sure, but those are more like speed networking, speed dating.
Everyone's responsible for their own placement.
And if you see, in fact, Stanford's placement report or any career report, they say X% of students have gotten jobs within 3 months of finishing the course. Which means that the college is done and the responsibility of college is also done. And I actually love it. I think the educational institute's task is to empower and ensure that the student is ready, because ultimately, if you're not ready to get a job yourself, you're also not ready to stay in that job or to excel in that job. So I still agree and appreciate that thought process also. But I think here at Masters Union, like you already mentioned, the structured approach towards placement prep, the amount of focus is incredible.
Incredible, yeah. I think at one point in time, our placement team was as big as the department, as the actual student body.
Right.
And I think today also your team is, I think, some 35 people just working within placements.
Correct.
And, crafting these personalized journeys for students. I know in the very first week, we sit with every student and actually create their personalized placement journey, which is so unique, right? I never had that, at least at Penn. Stanford perhaps so, but I'm sure not in so much detail.
So it's more like if you want something, go ask the career team. They might have something, they might connect you here and there, but the onus is still so much more on the student. I'll actually go a little deeper here, because here in the first month itself, the student would know the breadth of all the domains that are possibly out there. Because a lot of times, just information asymmetry, you don't even know what you don't know. You're coming in with this siloed approach that I want to get into consulting, I want to get into product management, but there are these 10, 11 other domains, there are roles that you can create. So we have this general practicum, which is more of your skill enhancement, your behavioral questions, tell me about yourselves, etc. You have Excel tests that are conducted literally to ensure that your Excel is up to speed.
Yeah, this is so interesting. I've met so many students from other business schools who know finance but don't know Excel.
But then that's not going to work
that
out.
defeats the purpose, right? They might be good theoretically, but when it comes to skills that are actually used,
correct. If you can't make a pivot table for me, then you're not. Don't call yourself an MBA. Sorry.
Absolutely. A pivot table is a very low bar.
Exactly. No, but I'm trying to say exactly that, Pratham, that low bar is also not getting met.
That's
People come in without pivot table knowledge, how to represent data well, how do you
asking them for
surveys.
R and Python, that is
I'm not even trying that. I'm saying basic. Are you able to structure that?
But I think what you also do really well is, in the very first term, you allow students to take, or in the very first week, students to take these 2-hour sessions in various domains, right? So do 2 hours of PM, do 2 hours of data, do 2 hours of marketing. So you get a sense what each of those require and what are the expectations the industry has from the students.
And we'll bring in an alumni who's just cracked the role in that domain. We'll bring in a senior leader who's been in that domain for a while, so that they can also talk about what's your career progression likely in that specific domain.
Most students don't know what they want to do after MBA.
But that's what they've come for, Pratham. It's not unfair, right? Because this is what they're saying, that this has been my career. I have been stuck. Now you tell me what else is there in front of me. So it's my duty as a program to actually be able to lay that buffet down for them and be like, why don't you decide now what you want to eat?
I've noticed this, at least even at Penn, and I'm sure it happens in IIMs and ISP, where the way you decide which company you apply to or go to is a function of when they come for the placements and not a function of what you want to be doing later in life. Right? So if you're rank 1 in an IIM, you have to do consulting. Like, even if you don't want to do consulting, you'll be put in that box that, no, you're rank 1, you should do consulting. It's like that boxing that we do in India. Like, if you're, good in class 12, if you have a 90% above, you have to take engineering or JE or whatever. If you're good in class 10, you have to take medical or non-medical and not commerce. I just never understand.
Yeah, it's like you're asking a cricketer to go play guitar. Which is not going to work out again.
And that's why, and I think we're getting distracted and talking about placements too much. So I think the last point on placement is the kind of attrition that we see after MBA from other colleges is so high. In the first year, some 30-40% people leave their jobs because they had gotten into the job for the wrong reasons. I think here, at least, I don't know if you have the exact data, but anecdotally speaking, I think our attrition after placements from companies is probably not more than 10-15%. I can hardly think of anyone right now from last year.
The cohort 3 has been placed for a while, cohort of 2023. And I have not heard of more than 5-7 people who might have.
Out of 164.
Right. So that to me is.
It's a very small number. Yeah. So I think that's something we should be very proud of. That you graduate with a career, sure, but also a stable career.
Correct.
Rather than having
and a
to
career
change.
that you're enjoying and where you'll grow and outgrow other people. Okay, we have a lot of questions coming in, Pratham, so we have to pace it up a little bit.
I'm seeing the notifications now. Let's go.
Yes. So we've spoken about placements, so now I'm going to leave that one, and we've talked about practicums. Just very quick point, because some people also keep asking this. Other than the mentors who are there within your faculty, other than all the EIR, so Pratham is a EIR, I'm a EIR, so who's going to be helping your career journey? There's something called Get Prepped, and I'm going to try to put a demo here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There are 150 mentors.
200. I checked today in the morning. Okay. Yeah, it's 200 now.
It just keeps increasing at this point. So we have 200 mentors. You can literally, it's like on-demand service. Uber is also not as easily accessible as these mentors. You figure out which domain you need help in. You figure out this company, which role. Do you need a mock interview? Do you just want to talk about life? Do you want to talk about anything at all? Each of these mentors are available over and above the entire ecosystem that's there to help you.
On campus?
On campus.
No, I think, if that was available to me.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's unlimited. You can do as many calls, as many meetings with as many mentors. And you'd be very wrong to not make use of this resource, right? And it's such a easy. So you just have to log in, select mentorship, select from the drop down which domain I think you want.
Right.
And I'm just imagining and then you click on finance and then you get all the finance mentors.
Right.
And then you say when you want the mentorship, today, tomorrow, day after.
Right.
And more often than not, you'll get a slot today itself.
Right.
You click today, then you'll get the times. And I'm sure that if you were to do a demo right now, you'll get a time within the next 15 minutes.
Correct.
100%. And then both of you are introduced over email and then the call happens, right? It's so beautiful. It's so natural. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of Masters Union, which is you get mentorship just in time, just when you need it. And that's often, otherwise, if you put it to tomorrow, wo hota hi nahi kabhi.
Right. I agree. And your questions would have changed by the time tomorrow comes. So, okay. So next one is accreditation, Pratham. You have to really tell us about what's happening there. What does accreditation even mean? If I'm a student who's graduated and the college gets accredited, does my degree also now get counted as accreditation? So tell us everything there is.
Got it. So, first of all, we have to differentiate between a degree and an accreditation.
Okay.
A degree is a piece of paper which is essentially certified by the government that this degree is a government certified degree. So a certificate or a diploma becomes a degree if it's certified by the government, right? So IIMs today do degrees because they're certified by the government to give degrees, right? However, no recruiter cares whether your degree is a degree, whether the piece of paper you have is a diploma or a certificate. What they care about is what your skill set is. So to give you an example, ISB is not a degree because ISB chose very early on to not go after the UGC AICT system and be independent from the government, right? So in that sense, what Masters Union gives you is a certificate, which is very similar to a certificate that ISB gives you, right? In fact, if you were to go abroad and go to any university or any college or any business school, that business school, college, university, that's not certified by UGC or AICT, right? So in Indian government's eyes, it's exactly the same thing. Okay, so that's about the degree. Okay. At an undergraduate level, you do need a degree, I understand, right? Because you have to apply for postgrad and they sometimes require you to have an undergraduate degree. Right. But in the postgrad space, nobody really expects a student to have a certified degree only. That's number one. Now, number two, what you ask is accreditation. Now, there are some accrediting bodies globally. There are three main ones that come in the business school domain: AACSB, EQUIS, Equus, and AMBA, right? So AACSB is British, Equus is European, and AMBA is American, right? And these are three accreditations that take 5 to 10 years for anybody to achieve or get. Now, Masters Union, I think, is in process for all three of them. And I hope that we'll become the youngest institution to get all three of them. I think ISB took perhaps 13 to 15 years to do that. Most business schools would take time in that, in that zip code, but we are looking at a time domain of 5 to 10 years. It'll hopefully be a record in of itself. And we are in process in all three of them. I think, just last year when we were admitted to the process with AACSB, it was the same time that IIM Bangalore started that membership. So quite exciting, this entire process. But at the same time, what I want to underline is that for a student or for a recruiter, that doesn't change the experience in any way. That also does not change how you'll be viewed by the industry in the future, right? What matters in the future is how well you do in whichever program you enroll in, number one. And number two, after that, whichever job you do, how well you do in that job, right? 20 years down the line, no one's going to ask you whether your degree was AACSB or Equus or AMBA accredited, right? I mean, Stanford, Wharton, I don't think we were ever asked that question, okay? And there's another question which you had asked, which is, let's say I graduate in the future. Let's say I graduate today, but Masters Union gets accredited in the future. Will my degree become accredited? Now, there are 2-3 fallacies with that question. First of all, you never had a degree, right? It was a certificate. And it's not that a certificate is accredited. It's that a college is accredited. So once Masters Union becomes accredited, you essentially graduated from an accredited college. The question of whether your certificate is accredited or not, never comes into the picture.
It's a wrong question.
It's a wrong question in of itself, right? Your certificate will never say whether it's AACSB or Equus or AMBA.
I see.
Right? It says Masters Union. And that's what matters. So, I mean, all in all, we have this hang up, essentially, which is, unless it's UGC AICTE certified, this college is not the right college, right? And I think I have to thank ISB for this, that 20 years ago, they broke this myth.
Right.
That even if you're not the AICTE and UGC certified, you can still be a great college, right? And I think that's what we are trying to get to.
Validations coming from the people who are coming to support the ecosystem, right? If someone like Deep Kalra, Sanjeev Bikhchandani sir, Suresh Narayanji, all these people are coming to the campus to mentor you. To me, that's a bigger validation than anybody
Their
else.
accreditation is way more
accreditation
valuable.
matters more, right?
I mean, the fact that Bain and BCG come.
Yeah.
I mean, their due diligence that they do on colleges is way more
I agree.
than any accrediting body,
Correct.
right? They will not come to us had we not been top notch, right? And so for me, those signals are way more valuable than any accreditation, right? We will pursue accreditation because I think it's, accreditations help us also, improve our systems. But the main accreditation that we are looking for is from business leaders, from recruiters, and from our ecosystem partners, right? So today, I believe, I think you led this collaboration with Microsoft, where our students are working with Microsoft Director of Product and a product of Microsoft Office, which is their biggest product.
It's like global project right now.
And students actually went to Noida, spent some time there at the office, and I think it was a month
every
long.
Week, 2 months long, and every week the student would go there. There were 5 students who were chosen to this, and each of the students was given a product manager of Microsoft as the mentor, and then the entire hierarchy was there, so that the process is overall very meaningful both for the student and for the
that accreditation
company.
is way more valuable.
Correct.
Today, just now before this, we had a meeting with a company whose name I don't know if we can take right now, but it's Microsoft's biggest competitor. Let's put it that way. And we are working with them on crafting something very similar, right? Where students will get actual credits from the product that they have, which everybody knows the name of, I'm sure. They can probably guess by now what I'm talking about. I didn't make it hard. And we'll be working with their team to create new products. I mean, that to me is way more validation. I agree with you. But I hope this question is answered once and for all, because I think we get this a lot.
We do get this a lot.
And if you're looking for more details, please go onto the AACSB website. And if you search for a college, you'll find Masters Union there if you need further context there.
Absolutely. Okay, some rapid fire questions, Pratham.
Okay.
I'm not from tech background. How will I cope up?
It doesn't matter, because we assume that people who are also coming from tech background, they have to unlearn and relearn everything, right? So someone having done computer science in their undergraduate studies does not mean anything. And, no offense to the computer science folks, but oftentimes what you've learned is not something what you can apply in the industry. So I think what we teach you, first of all, starts from scratch. We assume no prior knowledge.
Okay.
Also, if you're scared of tech, don't be, because we'll really start from scratch and we'll make sure to handhold you through that process. You will not end up becoming a developer after the PGP TBM, but you'll definitely become proficient enough to be able to work with developers and make sure that the developers is not taking you for a ride. I think that's the most important thing. So in summary, do not worry. And I think currently our class is 50% engineers, is 50% non-engineers.
Correct. And I want to throw in that today the world is so fast moving because of technology. It is inevitable that whichever domain, whichever industry you're in, it is going to get impacted, disrupted, changed because of technology. So either you be the one who's, changing yourself, or you get disrupted and become irrelevant.
Yeah. I mean, we have to change our courses every year.
Every year I'm like upgrading and figuring out what more is being taught and what more do we need to add. So we keep like 5-10% credits only for these new age cutting edge skills.
I think this year we had someone from London, from Imperial College, who came in to teach how AI is used in marketing specifically. That was a 20-hour course, very highly rated as well.
Correct.
And I feel like last year we didn't have this course.
BlackRock India head came this time of AI in finance, and I was like, oh my God, things are really changing at the ground level. We're not talking about it will change in the future.
It's already happening. It's already happening.
So you can't especially if you're pursuing an education, you're doing yourself disservice if you're not embracing technology.
I think maybe we can spend one more minute here, which is how the curriculum of Masters Union changes every year. Right? I think if like an alum were to come today and say, hey, I went through something very similar, that's not going to happen, because I think their curriculum was so different.
Right.
Every year, I think this year, AI has truly transformed our curriculum. And I can only imagine what will happen next year with the Vision Pro.
Right.
I mean, I'm seeing it all over YouTube.
It is.
And I've just placed an order for 10 of them, by the way. Hopefully they'll arrive soon.
Very excited to use that.
And we'll have to start teaching
Yes.
app development or business development on top of Vision Pro.
Correct.
It's a matter of time that becomes part of our daily lives. Right? Imagine like the day one of iPhone.
Yes.
How shitty it was. And today, our entire life revolves around this.
Right. And to your point, not just curriculum, Pratham, I think one thing that I honestly feel proud of what we've done well is the iterative approach that we have ourselves taken, where, when we say that we have that growth mindset for the student, we look for it. I do honestly feel that we have embraced that ourselves also. So we heard about how people wanted some more global exposure. We have introduced global immersions.
Oh, we didn't talk about that.
Yes. And then, more people said that, okay, I want to start up and the ecosystem is right. But at the end of it, I also have opportunity cost. I want to also apply for jobs. We said, okay, here's founder fellowship. You have 40,000 rupees given to you every month. And you can choose to step out of placements for up to 12 months and use that stipend to, sort of fund yourself. And at any point, if you feel that you want to come back to placements, you're welcome to join the next cohort.
Let's double click on both of these things. I think this is important.
Yes.
The first you spoke about global immersion, and the second you spoke about founder fellowships. So let's maybe take founder fellowships first. I think you've introduced it nicely. I would go one step ahead, which is tell you my own story. When I was in college, the only reason I ended up pursuing entrepreneurship full time was because my college supported me. Everyone was, going for internships and they were getting paid for doing summer internships. But I was getting paid to run my own company.
Wow.
Right. It was a small amount. It was some $3,000-$4,000, but everybody else was getting $40,000. But still, that was enough for me to cover my rent.
Right.
And that takes away the guilt of not going or sitting for placements. Right. And
it also takes away the burden of asking money from your parents. Like, at least basic you've covered.
So if at Masters Union, you truly want to pursue entrepreneurship and don't want finances to be an issue, we will gladly encourage you to take the founder fellowship, which is 40,000 rupees a month for almost up to a year.
Yes.
Till your startup really gets off the ground, right? And as Meg mentioned, if you ever want to come back to placements, you can always come back to placements either in the same year, if this time is available, or in the placement cycle of the following batch, right? So it's completely risk-free. I mean, if it were to me, I would make this compulsory. Like everybody has to do this. It just makes so much sense. Yes. And I'd be surprised at someone who does not take this opportunity, right? The risk is completely taken away. And I really hope that this fosters, last year, the number of students who pursued entrepreneurship was maybe, let's say, 10%. I really hope we can take it up to 30% this year with this founder fellowship.
I agree. And it's the good segue into, and actually we want to also speak about the global immersion and the tie-ups that we've done.
Yeah. So I think in the very first year, we had a lot of students asking us for global immersion because a lot of students who come to Masters Union are students who were also considering going abroad.
Yes.
Right. And for whatever reason, they did not go abroad. Right. And so they always felt that coming to Masters Union strips them of the opportunity to study abroad, to experience,
global culture,
all of that. So we've been looking to make partnerships with institutions of similar repute as us so that we can unlock these global immersions. So now finally we have partnerships done and dusted with SDA Bocconi, which is a top school in Europe. I think it's rank 1 in Europe. It's in Milan, and students can go there for up to 2 months. And depending on how many credits they want to do, it could be 1 or 2 months. Second, we have with Columbia Business School, which is again, I think one of the top 5 business schools globally in the middle of New York. And students can actually go there and spend again upwards of 1 or 2 credits equivalent worth of time in those campuses of Columbia Business School and SDA Bocconi. The third that I think we are working on right now, and it's a matter of figuring out when the signing is with NUS, which is in Singapore. It's closer to India. And there are a lot of Indian companies also that have offices there. And we felt that we needed an option sort of closer to home as well. So NUS is something we have cracked. And most importantly, and I think this is the most interesting one for me, is INSEAD.
Right.
Because there's also a 1-year program. It's very similar in the way that the programs are structured. And I think students will have a great time in INSEAD. And they can choose either the Singapore campus or the France campus. So these are the 4 that have already sort of been signed. And by the time students join, hopefully we have a few more. We are working on a few more Ivy League colleges. And I believe our teams are traveling tomorrow to meet them. Yes, Tarun, etc. They're going tomorrow to close some of the more deals. Yeah, and I hope that all students take up this opportunity. Right. But I think one question I also get is, are those priced separately or is it part of the curriculum?
That's a very important question.
It's a very important question that comes up all the time. And so here, I think maybe we can spend some time. See, these programs cost very different amounts, right? US is, of course, slightly more expensive. Europe is slightly cheaper. Singapore is slightly even further cheaper, right? So there is no like standard pricing that we can offer, right? So depending on what you want to do and how many credits you want to do while you're there. So for example, at Columbia, you can spend 2 to 3 months and actually get Columbia alumni status, right? Of course, that will come at an extra cost, but the cost range, it's between $3,000, which is around 2.5 lakh rupees, all the way to $8,000, which is approximately 6 lakh rupees, right? So that's the range that you have to pay on top of the regular fee structure to get access to these. And by the way, we always have scholarships for this as well, right? So if we believe that you have a good reason to go, and then, what you learn, you can bring back to Masters Union, add value to our ecosystem, we'll actually sponsor that and subsidize that up to 100%.
And to your point also, because this time, what's a very interesting trend, and this is a trend we're seeing, a lot of people who've already had international education are coming back and wanting to do their PG program from Masters Union. So I do believe that, that's why we've not gone ahead with making it mandatory as a global experience for everybody, because everybody could be at a different stage, both in terms of what's their learning outcome, what's their financial ability. So we didn't want this to be a financial burden for everybody involved. And that's why this is something that you can choose to do. And of course, you have to apply for it and you get selected, etc. But at the same time, it's not mandatory for that reason.
Correct. And I hope one day, we have enough good connections across the world that we can make it as part of the program, hopefully.
Yes.
But I think that's still a few years away.
Correct.
And I think we'll be one of the only schools in India to have this level of partnerships. ISB has, but I think out of 900 students at ISB, maybe only 30 or 40 go for these exchange programs. I hope that number is much higher for us.
Right, absolutely.
Than for other colleges. All right.
The next question from Shonal Pratham is that all this is great, but the fees, of course, we are at a steep price as per students, and they want to understand more about the scholarships, the banking partners, if there are any. Also, is it worth it? Because, the cost is really high.
Yeah. Mahak, I don't say this out loud. I don't know if I've said it publicly ever. But internally, you obviously know that we have this system that the fees of Masters Union, the 1-year fees of Masters Union, will never be more than the average salary of the previous batch. Right. And I'm talking about the base. Right. So even today, if you remove the tax, the Masters Union fee structure is perhaps the same as the base salary. I'm not including ESOPs, by the way.
Right.
The base salary of the previous cohort. Right. And I feel what that essentially does in a very simplistic mathematical term is make it a 1-year payback period. Right. It's more complicated than that.
Right.
It's not as simple as this, but at least from an optics standpoint, I feel that that's a justified fee structure. Right. And I think given the fact that the program is 1 year long and not 2 years long, you're actually making money 1 year sooner. Right. So if you were to compare the ROI of a 1-year program versus a 2-year program, it's not about the fees anymore.
Right.
It's about the 1 year that you save where you're actually earning a full-time salary. Right. So the ROI almost doubles automatically just because of that 1 year that you save.
And it's funny when people say that, no, but there we're paying X amount for 2 years. But that does not matter. You're earning, your opportunity cost is that much longer. Your bank balance is being hit for longer. You're saving later. So here you're absolutely right in pointing that out.
Yeah. And to me, I really strongly believe, you did a 2-year program. So, but
in the second year, in the last 6 months, I was doing nothing.
There you go.
People could choose to be productive, but because everything that was supposed to be done and the delta that came in the first 12, 13 months versus the delta that came in the last 11 months, there was a significant change in that.
Yeah, see, there's an internship in the middle. That's 4 months gone.
Correct.
Then there's so many holidays in the middle, which we don't have. So ours is a much more intense program, compact program. But the number of hours, by the way, the classroom hours that a 2-year program has and Masters Union, which is a 16-month program, it's exactly the same. It's really 800 hours of contact, which is also what you need for a 2-year accreditation, which we have applied for, even being a 16-month program. Right. So there's no compromise on the number of hours. It's just more tightly packed so that you can start earning faster. I think there's another thing which we should talk about, which is many students actually join their companies even before they finish the program. Right? I think that's again something that's very unique to Masters Union, whereby not a large percentage, but at least 15 to 20% students end up joining in their term 7 or term 8.
Correct.
And they end up doing their last 2 terms online, which I have not seen anywhere before. And I think it just makes a lot of sense. You can front load your credits, make sure that the last 2 terms are not that heavy, and join your company 2 months before you graduate.
Correct.
Right. That's amazing. Even though the program is 16 months, I would say that the students start their job on average at the 13th or 14th month.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that adds a lot of value. And I think generally when people think of whether an MBA program is worth it or not, I don't think they should only look at the finances and the numbers and the salaries and all of that. I think the way when you get married, right, you don't look at the amount of money you invest in a wedding function.
Right.
And seek ROI from there. It is something that you're investing within yourself, which will stay with you forever, right? So just when you're thinking of whether an MBA is worth it or not, do look at the finances, sure, but also look beyond it, right? Give enough weightage to the kind of network you will build, the kind of alumni network you'll be a part of, the kind of faculty that you'll be exposed to. This is way more important and timeless than the first job that you will get and the first CTC that you'll get.
The overall upskilling that's happening for you, you would have transformed as an individual. So
what we like to call, you would have changed orbits.
Yes.
I don't know if everybody knows this, but in chemistry, if you throw energy at an atom, the electrons change orbits, right? And that's essentially what we are trying to do with this program, that help you change orbit. And I think that's priceless.
That truly is priceless. Okay, and about scholarships and banking partners, I'll quickly take that one up. Yeah. We have banking partners which will cover up to 100% of your fees and accommodation, etc. So you're not struggling in terms of getting your finances sorted, irrespective of where your savings are. Of course, we also have the option to have a cliff of first 2 years where you don't have to worry about paying your loans in the first 2 years, and the loan repayment actually starts. 2-year moratorium. Yeah. So the 2-year moratorium ensures that you're not burdened by that immediately as you start your careers. There are sufficient scholarships. Again, they're very, very competitive. They're merit-based. They're coming from different board members with different fields. You should go check them out. But scholarships are simply merit-based. I wouldn't say there are too many. It's very, very competitive. But for the deserving candidates, there's always scholarship.
Yeah. And just beyond scholarships, I mean, the way scholarships work at Masters Union is that generally it's one of our masters who endows a scholarship. Correct. Right? And so even during the year or even post admissions, we have sometimes new scholarships that become available and we roll them out immediately. We don't wait until next year, right? So as and when scholarships become available, we call them bursaries. As and when they become available, we open it out to people. And I think a lot of students have been beneficiaries of these scholarships even during the program or just before the program starts.
I also want to mention one thing, which is this doesn't get covered so much. The number of prize awards that we give throughout these outclass competitions, if I add that up, we are probably giving in the range of 50 to 70 lakhs or maybe even more.
No, much more. Yeah,
much more.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do the math. So last year, between dropshipping awards, Creator Challenge awards, VIP Pre-Seed, VIP MVP, VIP GTM, and VIP Final Demo Day, between all 6-7 of these initiatives, we would have, let's say, given grants of upwards of, the VIP finale itself was just, 50-55 lakhs, right? So upwards of 1 crore easily.
Correct.
Easily. And then if you add founder fellowships on top of that, that would be another 2-3 CR, I'm guessing.
Right.
So almost 3 to 4 CR is another scholarship base that you can tap into if you make use of the resources here at Masters Union. And this is over and above the scholarships or the grants that companies sometimes partner with us. Or prizes that companies give.
There's so many small life projects where companies paying small stipends. Right. These are not full-time internships with just small stipends that are being paid. No, absolutely.
I think Meg, the very first year when we were inducting our first cohort, we had this hashtag which was called graduate debt free.
Wow!
If a student really wants,
they truly can. Yeah.
They truly can graduate debt free. Masters Union will give you enough opportunities to earn your entire investment back, not when you start a job, but even during the program itself. And I think every year we have 5-6 students who easily in real cash make enough money back to cover the entire cost of their program.
Correct.
Right? So if you truly make use of the Masters Union opportunity, you will graduate debt-free. In fact, hashtag graduate debt-free.
I agree. No, fantastic. I think, and that's the idea that this is not a financial burden that's getting added. It's a skill that's going to help you shift orbits. Okay, so last few questions we'll have to pause at this point. Otherwise, it'll keep going on.
Yeah, no one wants to watch such a long podcast.
Yeah, it's just going on. Deferred admits, is that allowed or not?
Maybe in 1 out of 25 cases, if you have a genuine reason. We have done this in the past, but more often than not, you'll hear a no. But if there is a reason, something in the family or something financially, we are happy to talk and engage. So send us an email.
Students who are waitlisted, what are the probability that they're going to get through? Because there are some students who are waitlisted right now and they are getting anxious.
That list is small usually, and I think it's worth the wait. Last year, we maybe opened up 30% of the waitlist.
Okay.
This year, I'm guessing the number might be slightly smaller, maybe 10 to 15%.
Sure.
But hang in there. But also keep your other options open, please.
Yes, I agree. This is my favorite question, so I'm going to take this one actually. R1 versus R2 versus R3.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the advantages, disadvantages? I would strongly recommend apply early, although we are now, the only deadline that's left right now is round 3, which is fine. But think of it this way, you're competing in a class of say 200, 300. X number of seats have already gone. So every time you're competing for fewer seats with more number of people who are maybe who are waiting for the last round to, apply. Then the second part is your basic, scholarship amounts. While we try to keep a uniform pool, but again, the pool decreases sharply, right? And even your hostel, like small things where we have priority, first come, first serve. So hostel, a lot of people in round 1 to end up getting it more easily. So those are some advantages, disadvantages.
And even within the round, it's helpful to apply earlier in the round.
Right.
Like don't wait till the last day.
Good.
Because when it comes to hostel allocation, even that will matter as to when you actually finish your application.
Absolutely. So that's why I think strongly a big believer that applies sooner, have your options open, you'll know where you want to go then. I was a R1 applicant in Stanford. Another anecdote is that imagine, now I've already, because we truly also value the diversity of the classroom. Now imagine I've already taken a Mahak type candidate in round 1. My willingness to bring another Mahak would be lower because I know that there is already a Mahak who will contribute to the classroom. So,
I mean, just to give you an example, I think in round 1 and round 2, we've already taken at least 2 people from the army.
Right.
And I think that was our quota for army. So unless we get a great candidate, we'll probably not open it up to another army diversity candidate.
Precisely. So I think that's why I apply sooner so that, you also have a much longer time to bond with your classmates, get a head start, So all
some people start taking those YouTube courses that we throw. I mean, right away. I see so much engagement on those
I'm seeing
groups.
all the term 0 requirement. Mahak send us resume links and the LinkedIn
I saw that.
links,
You sent that yesterday.
the consulting prep, everything we've been sending to these students. So they're going to get a head start. All right. And then I think last question, Pratham, that I'm going to pick from this one. Other questions I feel we've covered in some way or the other is that Masters Union as an alternative to going abroad. Do you see it as a good alternative? What are the pros and cons of someone who's actually thinking of applying abroad?
I think things have changed abroad a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. I think when you and I went to college abroad, at that time, job opportunities there were far easier to crack. Right. This is true for the US, UK, Canada, to an extent, some countries in Europe. We are living in a world where countries are becoming more and more insulated.
Yes.
Right. Donald Trump does not want people coming into the US. Trudeau does not want Indians coming into Canada. The UK government also, I mean, even though it's an Indian prime minister, Indian origin, I mean, he's also shut off a lot of the UK universities to international students. So now I think what's happening is fewer and fewer students would want to go abroad because it will make less and less sense for them because they're not going to get the ROI. Say if you go to a top 5 college in the US, if you go to Stanford, please go to Stanford. Right. Hopefully we'll beat Stanford one day, but we are still, slightly
in the process
away.
there.
We are almost there.
Yes.
But let's say if you're not getting into a top 5 or top 7 college, do consider options in India.
Correct.
Because your ROI will genuinely make more sense in India.
Your alumni network is here. Imagine today I feel so much FOMO that all of my classmates, 70% of all of Stanford class ends up staying back in Silicon Valley, which would mean that they're forming deeper connections. I'm here and I have a much smaller alumni pool here. So I'm actually relying more on my NSIT alumni network than my Stanford alumni network here.
And the other thing is that tomorrow, if the probability of you getting an H1B or getting a job there is so less, this year, 800,000 people, 8 lakh people applied for H1B and only 1.25 lakh people are going to get it.
Right.
Like that means the 7 lakh people who studied, probably many of them undergrad in the US, will have to come back to India. Correct. Right? So that ROI completely goes for a toss and you'll come back with maybe 10 times the debt.
Right.
An undergrad in the US today costs upwards of 3 crores.
Right.
3 crores.
That's insane.
Right. And an MBA in the US costs maybe 2.5 crores.
Yeah. I mean, just the tuition was 1.5 and this was 5 years back. So I'm sure the inflation played its own. Yeah. And then the living cost and, all the other additional costs that are there.
2 crores of MBA. So I mean, if you are...
I'm still paying my loan, by the way. I've been 5 years out of the college and I don't think I'm going to be done another 3-4 years at least, especially because I decided to be a founder.
Correct.
But then that limits your, opportunities. Absolutely. The ability to take risk is going to reduce further because of that.
So I think for that reason, maybe 5 years ago, my answer would have been very different.
Yeah.
Today, I would strongly suggest to consider Indian colleges more than you consider US, Canada, or European or British colleges. The ROI today is not there. Maybe tomorrow it changes.
Right.
Maybe tomorrow countries become more open. Maybe the government changes. Maybe, the Democrats come back to power in the US and then everything will be okay. But this year, studying for your MBA in India makes a lot more sense than studying abroad.
I agree with you. Great. So Pratham, we have questions still coming in, but I'm going to literally stop looking at
there's one more question. The student has texted me 3-4 times.
Okay,
now, I think.
I'll let you take that then.
It's about hostels.
Okay, yes.
I think that's a fair question, which we can spend some time on. And I think the question is basically like, what's the hostel life like? And do we get a hostel or is it compulsory? I think a few points there we can cover quickly. It's more logistical. Hostel is not compulsory, but it's highly recommended that you stay in the hostel because you build a community there, right? Okay. If you're married, if you have kids, if you have a family, in that case, it's optional for you, of course. Right. Let's say you live in Gurgaon, you want to stay on your own, please feel free to. You might have some specific requirements, but the rest of you're more than welcome to stay in the hostel. Our hostel is also quite heavily subsidized. I know it still might sound a little bit more expensive because this is in the middle of Gurgaon. But believe me, it's worth it. The hostel will never be more than 20-25 minutes away from campus. We have regular shuttles to and fro. And there is, what I'm told, a very happening hostel life. I've never been a part of it. I don't know if you've gone to any of the events that they hold, but I hear it's nice. And Gurgaon, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, you can't go wrong in Gurgaon. And adding to that, Pratham, because you touched on the hostel, also talking about, because we don't have the traditional campus space, some people feel that, I'm not getting enough opportunities to play, etc. And you and I have both gone out to these games with students. We have these facilities where you can access all sports facilities through these credits that we are offering to the students. And the beauty was that in a recent, I think it was I'm Lucknow or Kashipur, I'm forgetting which one.
Yeah. Both of them.
Okay. So our students beat these colleges in a lot of sports also, other than the case competitions that we've been winning. But to me, it was truly beautiful that we don't have a traditional space, but still.
No, but I mean, we have a gym on campus, which is the nicest gym I have ever seen in my life, right? Just downstairs right here.
Right.
But more importantly, in Gurgaon, there are at least 20 sports arenas where you have badminton, basketball, tennis, horse riding, shooting. And if our students... Sorry? Golfing. It's right here, yeah. You told me about this place. Yeah. So all of these options are literally in a 2-3 mile radius. Correct. And all of our students have access to these spaces for free. So if you want to play tennis tomorrow, we will pay for that in any of these spaces in Gurgaon, right? So in a sense, you actually have way more sporting options than one single campus could ever offer you.
Correct.
Right? And by the way, I play badminton all Monday and Wednesday nights with students. And generally I beat them. So no, it's a lot of fun.
Yes.
We all play as a team. And I've also played basketball once. And it's a lot of fun. So the city essentially becomes your campus, right? And Gurgaon is a great place to be a campus. And I feel like Gurgaon gets a bad rep when it comes to, security and safety. And I think that's improved a lot.
I do agree to that.
I think I feel a lot more comfortable.
As a woman, I can say that for sure, that, I've gone out enough times at night, even if I don't have a driver with me, even if I've taken a public transport. I feel today the public services in terms of Ubers and Olas and everything, they've made it very, very easy to
do smart's
there. So everything is tracked. You can share your location with your partner, your friends and all. So you can be very sure. And I have not had any instance in the last whatever years that I've been here where I would feel unsure about whether I should have been here or not.
Yeah. And that's a great time to, there's a great segment to finishing this. I hope that all the questions got answered. These are the most frequently asked questions. And I think we have answered them in quite a little bit of detail, 1 hour of detail.
Yeah.
I think the best way to do this would be to break these perhaps. I think it's a great idea.
Correct.
And send them to students.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
No, I think I'm excited for students to continue applying. It's the last round. It's very, very competitive. We're seeing excellent, applications. So just put in all the hard work. It's all worth it.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on this topic, which is all the interesting applications. I want to talk maybe 1 minute about, it is so interesting the kind of applications we are receiving. We have had people who have been celebrity apprentices. They've worked with celebrities as a celebrity apprentice.
Yes.
We have students who applied who come from Merchant Navy, from Army, someone who's been on a missile Navy boat for like 10 years.
Yes.
I mean, imagine the kind of experiences they'll
Right.
bring to the table. We have people who run their own restaurants. We have people who run their own D2C brands. We have students.
Million followers on the
AI
yes.
we will not. Sorry, we
Lot of
gave it too much.
influencers.
A lot of influencers who applied. A lot of very unique students who I never thought would think about doing an MBA.
Yeah, right.
Those are the kinds of people who have applied, and I can, we have sent those messages on our internal groups of the kind of
Yes.
students. I'm just gonna maybe open that up and share a few more as they come to our mind. Someone who spent 7 years at McKinsey, someone who's a satellite engineer, low orbit satellite engineer, whatever that means. We have someone, lieutenant commander in the army, right? I mean, that would be we have someone who's an Ayurvedic doctor
Wow.
who's applied,
Right.
which is also so interesting. We have a professional poker player who's applied.
Yes, I saw that one.
You saw
I
that,
got
right?
really
Like,
excited.
Someone's a professional poker player. He's been a poker player for almost 3 years, and super interesting, the application. I'm not sure if all of them will get in or not, but definitely very interesting people who applied.
Yeah, the quality of the cohort that comes in together using such diverse, applications, to me, that's very exciting, because then suddenly, even though you're not a professional poker player, maybe you are, I don't know. But then because you have someone, you can easily learn from his or her experience.
Absolutely.
And
They
to me,
bring
that's
so much to the
priceless. Yes.
All right. I think that's a great note to end on.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Pratham.
Thanks, Mahak.